Spoilers ahead. People We Meet on Vacation is described as a friends to lovers romance. On the surface level, it can be read that way, but there are a few narrative tricks that disguise what it really is. An emotional affair. I know that's a risky thing to say. Cheating is a polarizing topic. This book is overwhelmingly popular. Most people don't want to hear anything critical about it. They'll say, it's just fiction, why are you taking it so seriously? For others, cheating is a personal trigger, and they also don't want to hear anything about it. But when I read romance books, my enjoyment doesn't just come from the wish fulfillment or escapism of true love and a happily ever after, although those are fine. I enjoy deconstructing the book like a puzzle and examining the choices the narrative makes. I want to know how it works. So to me, it's fascinating that People We Meet on Vacation has readers empathizing with and rooting for the other woman. The cheater gets her happily ever after, and everyone loves it. The point is not to moralize about cheating. Everyone knows that's wrong. The point is to study how the narrative structure minimizes the harm and has readers rooting for Poppy, who is the other woman, because it reveals something about people psychologically. So how did the author accomplish this? How do you write a book about the woman your boyfriend tells you not to worry about, and have her not only win, but have almost the entire audience crying tears of joy when she gets everything she wants? There are 4 narrative techniques that make Poppy seem like the hero of the book rather than its villain. This is a high-quality book from a wildly popular and established author. These choices are deliberate. Number 1, everything is Poppy's POV. This makes it easier to sympathize with her. Throughout her 12-year friendship with Alex, the reader roots for them to get closer, enjoys the moments when they flirt, but Poppy's perspective makes it easy to forget about the side characters in the book, the other people they're dating. From Sarah's point of view, the book reads like a horror story. Poppy is the woman Alex keeps telling her not to worry about. Alex almost marries Sarah. He buys her a ring. Ultimately, Sarah's worst fears are proven to be right. Alex chooses Poppy over Sarah. Look at this passage from chapter 19. Sarah wants to call her Sadie, his new cat, but Alex doesn't think that fits, so he's biding his time. The cat is the only thing we ever talk about these days. I'm surprised Alex would be so forthright as to tell me that Sarah feels weird about the summer trip. Of course she does, I tell him. I would too. I don't blame her at all. If my boyfriend had a friendship with a girl like Alex's and mine, I would wind up in the yellow wallpaper. The Yellow Wallpaper is a feminist story about a woman who goes insane because her husband locks her in a room and gaslights her. There's no way in hell I could believe it was wholly platonic, especially having been in this friendship long enough to accept that 5 to 15% of what if as part of the deal. So what do we do, he asks. I don't know, I say, trying not to sound miserable. Do you want to invite her? He's quiet for a minute. I don't think that's a good idea. Okay, ... and then after the longest pause ever I say, should we just ... cancel? Alex sighs. He must have me on speakerphone because I can hear his turn signal clicking. I don't know, Poppy, I'm not sure. Yeah, me neither. We stay on the phone, but neither of us says anything else for the rest of his drive. I just got home, he says eventually. Let's talk about this again in a few weeks. Things could change by then. Notice the avoidance, the denial. Poppy has lines that explicitly acknowledge the Sarah problem, but they are buried deep in the book, and they are moments of insecurity for Poppy's emotional needs, rather than real consideration for Sarah. Narrative technique number 2, the timeline jumps. The book essentially has 2 timelines woven together in a zipper format. The past timeline starts from 12 years ago, when Poppy and Alex met in college, and it is alternated with the present timeline, like a zipper. Eventually, the past timeline catches up, and you learn their big fight 2 years ago in Croatia was because they made out and instantly regretted it, due to some miscommunication trope. The unusual timeline may seem like a quirky choice that leaves readers on a juicy cliffhanger at the end of every chapter, wanting to get through the other timeline to find out what happens next. Besides being suspenseful, the jumbled timeline also serves another, more sinister purpose. If you put the timeline in order, Poppy and Alex don't gradually fall in love near the end of the novel. They behave like a couple almost immediately. Take a look at their first real conversation together, their awkward carpool ride home to Ohio in Chapter 5. Maybe, I think, quiet Alex is like a coat that he puts on before he walks out the door. Maybe this is naked Alex. Okay, I'll think of a better name for it. The point is, I'm starting to like this one. What about traveling? I ask in the lull between songs. What about it? He says. Love or hate? His mouth presses into an even line as he considers. Hard to say, he replies. I've never really been anywhere. Read about a lot of places, just haven't seen any of them. Me neither, I say. Not yet. He thinks for a moment. Love, he says. I'm guessing love. Yeah, I nod. Me too. They discover they both love the idea of traveling. They're not actually opposites, they're complementary puzzle pieces. They click so well together, they can be so genuine with each other. And from that point forward, they establish a ritual, a yearly trip. Not we should hang out sometime, a standing annual commitment. A recurring, scheduled, emotionally significant annual event is not how friendships are typically formed in early adulthood. It is, however, how couples form traditions. The book presents this as the beginning of a friendship. Structurally, it functions as the beginning of a long-term relationship. Throughout the book, they organize their lives around each other, they measure their partners against each other, they repeatedly choose each other as their primary emotional support, and they do this while actively dating other people. But the book never calls that a relationship. When you reread the book, it's no longer a friends to lovers story, it's an affair to lovers story. They are in a romantic relationship the entire time, they just refuse to call it that. And all the narrative choices serve to convince readers that this is true love that just took 12 years to blossom. 3. Trauma, or trauma bonding as behavioral justification. Poppy was bullied in high school. Alex's mother died in childbirth. In Chapter 9, a bully/first crush named Jason made up a story about Poppy giving him a blowjob, and everyone called her Porny Poppy and hated her after that. The entire soccer team called me Porny Poppy for like a year after that. No one wanted to be my friend. Then there was 10th grade, the worst of all. Poppy's trauma motivates her fear of rejection. Her reason to travel is given in Chapter 35. Her big love confession speech to Alex at the end of the book. I loved meeting new people, I explain. I loved feeling connected, feeling interesting. Growing up here, I was so effing lonely, and I always felt like there was something wrong with me. But I told myself if I went somewhere else, it would be different. There'd be other people like me. I know that, he says. I know you hate it here, Poppy. So, the connection between her always traveling with Alex and her insecurity from being bullied are rooted in trauma. This helps excuse her behavior because it positions her as the victim of harm, not the perpetrator. In Chapter 34, there's a scene where she randomly sees Jason in New York. He is balding and apologizes profusely to Poppy for his past behavior. Jason Stanley has lost most of his hair. He's put on some weight around the middle, but there's still something of the cute boy I once had a crush on, who then ruined my life. This scene helps validate her trauma as real, not imagined. And Poppy's rejection trauma is used to justify her behavior throughout the novel. Alex's trauma stems from his mother dying when he was a child. His father couldn't handle it and became absent as a parent, forcing Alex to take care of his younger brothers. In Chapter 29, while they're on a trip to Tuscany, Poppy has a pregnancy scare which triggers Alex's trauma. He shakes his head against the side of mine. I need you too, Poppy. It's then that I realize how thick and wet and trembling his voice is. When I pull back from him, I realize that he's crying. I touch the side of his face. Sorry, he says, closing his eyes. I don't know what I'd do if something happened to you. And then I understand, to someone like Alex who lost his mother how he did, pregnancy isn't just a life-changing possibility, it's a potential death sentence. Alex's behavior, his refusal to openly commit to Poppy as a romantic partner, is explained narratively in two ways. First, he says he is being considerate of Poppy's feelings and not forcing them. This is classic aloof MMC behavior. Second, because his mother died in childbirth, he says his trauma made him want to avoid getting Poppy killed via pregnancy and breaking him like his dad. Look at Alex's speech from Chapter 31, where Poppy has a breakdown over finding out that Alex almost married Sarah. Alex reassures Poppy by revealing that he got a vasectomy for her, even though he was with Sarah at that time. Then you thought you were pregnant, and it scared me so much I got an effing vasectomy, and it didn't even occur to me to ask Sarah what she thought. I just made the appointment, and a few days after, I was walking past this antique store and I saw this ring, an old yellow gold Art Deco thing with a pearl. I saw it and thought, that would be the perfect engagement ring. Maybe I should buy it. And my very next thought after that was, what the F am I doing? Not just the ring, which Sarah would have hated, by the way, but the vasectomy, all of it. I was doing it all for you, and I know that's not normal, and it definitely wasn't fair to her, so I ended things that day. In light of his trauma, this sounds like reasonable behavior. He even sounds like he's trying to be fair to Sarah. But notice what's happening here. Alex has been repeatedly breaking up with Sarah whenever he thinks Poppy is romantically available. Alex spontaneously got a vasectomy just for the possibility of sleeping with Poppy, even though he was actively dating Sarah at the time and about to be engaged to Sarah. Throughout the book, their trauma and trauma bonding are used as justification for horrible behavior, and that's a deliberate choice. It's a choice to give your characters trauma as a way to defend their selfish actions. And again, I'm not here to moralize about cheating. I'm here to analyze the way these narrative choices work to persuade the reader into rooting for Poppy and Alex. That is excellent writing by Emily Henry. So, reader perception is carefully manipulated and controlled. Poppy's unyielding POV helps minimize the impact on Sarah, Trey, and the other people they cheated on. Timeline jumps obscure the relationship timeline. The jumps confuse readers as to when Poppy and Alex are actually in relationships with other people. Finally, the fourth technique is retconning morality, or rewriting past behavior. This is most apparent in Poppy and Alex's grand love speeches at the end of the book. Take a look at Poppy's big love speech to Alex in chapter 35. And then there was you, my voice wobbles dangerously. I steel myself, straighten my spine. I love you so much that I've spent 12 years putting as much distance between us as I could. I moved, I traveled, I dated other people. I talked about Sarah all the effing time because I knew you had a crush on her, and it felt safer that way, because the last person I could take being rejected by was you. And now I know that. I know it's not traveling that's going to get me out of this slump, and it's not a new job, and it's sure as hell not chance encounters with water taxi drivers. All of that, every minute of it, has been running away from you, and I don't want to do that anymore. On the surface, it sounds like Poppy has reflected and grown, partly thanks to therapy. She will no longer keep running from her feelings. She is here to be honest and confess and commit to Alex. But look at the way she frames other people. She says, I dated other people. I talked about Sarah all the effing time because I knew you had a crush on her, and it felt safer that way. She conveniently does not frame it that she dated other people at the same time she was romantically attached to Alex. Because this is her accountability speech, that is a big omission. She frames Alex as having a crush on Sarah rather than his almost fiancée that he bought a ring for, was about to propose to, before Poppy pulled an emergency breakup card. At this point, the reader is gushing with satisfaction that Poppy and Alex are finally openly declaring their romantic love for each other. So it's easy not to notice the way their past actions are being subtly reframed. Alex does the same thing in his love confession speech to Poppy in chapter 36. And I want that so badly. I do regret every chance I missed to tell you how I felt. All the times I convinced myself I'd lose you if you really knew, or that we were too different. I want to just be happy with you, but I'm afraid of what comes after. His voice cracks. I'm afraid of you realizing I bore you, or meeting someone else, or being unhappy and staying, and ... his voice catches. I'm afraid of loving you for our entire lives and then having to say goodbye. I'm afraid of you dying and the world feeling useless. I'm afraid I won't be able to keep getting out of bed if you're gone, and if we had kids, they'd have these horrible lives where their amazing mom is gone and their dad can't look at them. His hand passes over his eyes, catching some of the moisture there. Notice how Alex minimizes the fact that he almost married Sarah. He says he was afraid to lose Poppy, but that didn't stop him from almost marrying Sarah. Imagine you are Sarah listening to his speech after Alex almost proposed to you. You dated Alex off and on for years, hoping he would choose you, and then he says the entire time he only ever cared about Poppy. He says the only reason he didn't choose Poppy earlier is because he loved her too much and was afraid she would die while birthing his children. Of course, these are fictional characters. They didn't hurt anyone real, but that's the fascinating part. In our minds, we are told to root for them, and through expert narrative techniques, people overwhelmingly fall in love with Poppy and Alex. What do you think? Am I being too critical? Did this video help you articulate some choices you found interesting in the book? Or did this video validate your #JusticeForSarah point of view? If there's any interest, I'd love to make a deep dive video about people we meet on vacation, to go chapter by chapter and do a close reading of the narrative techniques in the book. Thank you for watching.